Tonight let us drift together through the endless corridors of time, moving slowly and quietly across the vast landscapes of human civilization, where the echoes of the past linger like distant whispers. Imagine yourself closing your eyes and walking gently into the ancient mists, where the story of our kind first began. Long before the rise of kingdoms, long before the building of cities, before the writing of words and the shaping of stone, there were only small bands of people moving across the earth, following the rhythm of the seasons, guided by the stars and the gentle pull of survival. These people carried with them fire, a fragile light in the darkness, a symbol of warmth and safety, and with every flicker of that flame they were reminded of their own endurance. We do not know their names, we cannot know their voices, yet in every tool chipped from stone, in every trace of a hearth left behind, we see their presence. They gathered berries, they hunted with sharpened sticks, and they slept under the endless canopy of stars that has not changed since then. For tens of thousands of years they lived in this way, repeating the quiet rhythms of walking, gathering, resting, and moving again, a cycle that spun slowly like the turning of the earth. Then, in the fertile valleys where rivers ran rich and steady, something began to shift. The people who had once wandered chose instead to stay. They planted seeds in the soil, and with patient waiting they saw those seeds grow into food. Slowly, patiently, over many generations, this idea of farming spread, and humans began to settle. They built the first small villages of mud and reed, clustered close together near water, living beside animals they learned to tame. Sheep, goats, cattle, and dogs walked among them, sharing their lives. And in those moments, civilization as we know it began its long unfolding. Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, lay between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Here the Sumerians rose, building the earliest cities with clay bricks baked in the sun. They invented writing, carving small wedge-shaped marks onto clay tablets, marks that would record trade, laws, stories, and prayers. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories known to humankind, was pressed into these tablets, telling of kings, gods, and the search for meaning in a fleeting world. Around these cities stood ziggurats, tiered temples rising like artificial mountains, where priests climbed stairs to make offerings to the gods above. Not far away, along the Nile, Egypt grew as another great center of human life. The river flooded each year, spreading rich soil across its banks, and in this rhythm the Egyptians found both sustenance and faith. They built pyramids of stone so massive that they still stand after thousands of years, silent guardians of eternity. They filled tombs with treasures for the afterlife, believing the soul would journey onward beyond death. Their pharaohs ruled as divine kings, their artisans painted walls with delicate images of daily life, and their scribes wrote in hieroglyphs, a language of pictures etched into stone and papyrus. In the Indus Valley, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa emerged, laid out in careful grids with advanced drainage systems and public baths. The people of this land traded with faraway regions, yet their script remains undeciphered, leaving much of their story still hidden. To the east, in the Yellow River Valley of China, dynasties rose and fell, beginning with the Shah and Shang, weaving the earliest threads of a culture that would endure for millennia. Bronze vessels, oracle bones, and delicate silk all emerged here, while philosophy and poetry slowly took shape. As centuries turned to millennia, civilizations multiplied. In Greece, city-states like Athens and Sparta debated democracy, philosophy, and war. In the theaters of Athens, playwrights staged tragedies and comedies that asked timeless questions about fate, love, and justice. In Rome, a republic grew into an empire, stretching across vast lands, building roads, aqueducts, and amphitheaters. Roman law, Roman order, Roman language, these left their marks long after the empire itself had crumbled. Yet history was not only the story of empires. It was also the story of farmers tending wheat, potters shaping clay, merchants guiding caravans across deserts, sailors crossing seas guided only by stars, children playing in dusty streets, families sharing meals beside hearths. It was the story of countless lives, each one small and ordinary, yet together forming the great mosaic of civilization. In the lands of Mesoamerica, the Maya built cities of stone hidden within jungles, where temples rose steeply to the skies and priests studied the heavens. They created calendars more precise than many others of their age, and they carved glyphs that recorded kings and rituals. In the highlands of the Andes, the Inca built roads that wound across mountains, binding together a vast empire. They built terraces upon steep slopes, growing crops in harmony with the land, and carried messages along their roads with swift runners. Time continued its long river, carrying civilizations forward, and everywhere the same patterns appeared. Rise and fall, creation and destruction, golden ages and dark times. After Rome fell, Europe shifted into what came to be called the Middle Ages, a time of castles, cathedrals, and feudal lords. In dimly lit monasteries, monks copied texts by hand, preserving the knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome. Across the world, in the Islamic Golden Age, scholars in Baghdad, Córdoba, and Cairo studied science, mathematics, and medicine, translating and expanding the wisdom of earlier civilizations. Algebra, astronomy, and medicine flourished, leaving knowledge that would later spread across continents. In China, the Tang and Song dynasties gave rise to poetry, porcelain, and innovations like gunpowder and printing. In Japan, the Heian court developed its own delicate culture of literature and art, producing works like The Tale of Genji. On the African continent, great kingdoms like Mali thrived, with cities such as Timbuktu becoming centers of trade and learning. Caravans carried salt, gold, and books across the Sahara, linking cultures in a vast network. History moved quietly into the age of exploration. Ships crossed oceans, linking continents that had long been separate. This brought exchange, but also conquest, colonization, and suffering. New foods, new ideas, and new diseases spread rapidly, reshaping the world in ways both wondrous and devastating. Empires rose once more, in Europe, in Asia, in the Americas, and human civilization became increasingly interconnected. Through centuries of change, technology advanced. Printing presses spread books and ideas more widely than ever before. Scientific revolutions questioned old beliefs and offered new ways of understanding the universe. Industrial revolutions transformed cities into places of machines, smoke, and endless labor. Nations formed, wars were fought, borders shifted, and people continued to dream of better lives, better worlds, better futures. Yet beneath the grand events, the slow and ordinary rhythm of daily life continued, as it always had. Families ate meals, children learned to walk, lovers exchanged glances, farmers sowed seeds, and travelers rested their weary feet by firesides. These small and quiet details are as much a part of history as the empires and battles, for they remind us that human civilization is not only about power and monuments, but about the simple persistence of life. As we drift through these centuries, we see the world changing but also staying the same. The tools in our hands grew sharper, our houses taller, our knowledge deeper, and yet the same questions remained. Who are we? Why are we here? What lies beyond? In the stars above, ancient people saw gods and stories. Today, we see galaxies and endless space. But still, the stars shine the same, and still, we look up with wonder. Now, as we reach the modern age, we see cities of glass and steel rising where once there were only mud huts. We see airplanes soaring where once only birds flew. We see words typed on glowing screens instead of carved into stone. We see humans walking on the moon, looking back at the fragile blue sphere of Earth. We see science unravel mysteries of atoms and galaxies, and yet at the same time we see that the same ancient challenges endure: how to live, how to love, how to care for one another, how to continue. The story of human civilization is not a straight line, but a spiral, winding endlessly, carrying echoes of the past into the present and the future. Every age, no matter how advanced, carries within it the memory of all that came before. Every tool we use carries the memory of the first stone blade. Every word we write carries the memory of the first marks pressed into clay. Every song we sing carries the memory of the first voices raised around a fire. And so, as we lie here now, listening to this long and gentle story, we realize that history is not only behind us but within us. We carry it in our blood, in our languages, in the ways we think and move and dream. We are the sum of countless generations, each one leaving a trace, a whisper, a step upon the path. Civilization continues, slowly, endlessly, like a great river flowing, and we are part of that current, drifting along. And now, as this story grows softer, let it lull you into rest. For history is long, and the night is gentle, and the tale of human civilization will continue tomorrow, and the day after, and for as long as there are hearts to remember. Sleep now, with the knowledge that you are part of something vast and ancient, and that the river of time carries you safely onward into dreams.